Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our Sunday message for August 6th of 2023. We are all on this glorious spiritual path, and we don't fully understand everything there is to know about this path. However, the book that we've been discussing, Lessons in Truth by H. Emily Cady, definitely gives us some guidelines. And one of those guidelines is about our spiritual gifts that we've all been promised. Every person wants to be free from something, free from sickness or suffering or financial struggles or something. Myrtle Fillmore wanted to be healed from tuberculosis and the effects of malaria. She spent almost 2 years just connecting with Source day after day after day for hours on end. And she was able to overcome her health challenges by the power of prayer. And from that time on, the majority of Unity teachings were devoted to helping people understand that they could heal themselves and that they had a connection to Source to help heal others. Healing is one of the spiritual gifts that we have. And in our day and age, we have absolutely dozens and dozens and dozens of different types of healers. We have Reiki masters, access consciousness teachers, intelligent life teachers, and the list goes on and on and on. Even massage therapists are being taught to connect to a higher source and allow that energy to come in and through them to the client that's on the table. So this aspect of healing, or being a channel for healing, is one of the many spiritual gifts that have been promised to us. However, it's not the only one. When we finally realize the truth of our being, that the divine presence lives in us and as us, and that perfect life and health can be ours through our connection to that source, then health in all ways is a desired result of that. Yet other people are having other experiences that are not spoken about very often. The aspect of healing our bodies has become a fundamentally accepted possibility in our world today. And yet not everyone goes out and attempts to be a healer or a channel for healing, actually has wonderful results. There are thousands and thousands of people who have done their best to heal from cancer or other afflictions, and yet are not able to do so. And because of this, they think that they don't have spiritual gifts, and yet they may have a different spiritual gift than the one that's been widely accepted throughout our world. If you are one of those who are doing some sort of healing practice and you're seeing, wonderful results from that, that's awesome. If you are one that has been doing some sort of healing practice and you don't see those results that other people have, don't let that get you down. There comes a time in our lives when we have to let go of just everything about a spiritual gift, one spiritual gift, or thinking that is the only spiritual gift that there is. John 15, verses 5 to 8 reads, I am the vine, you are the branches. If you remain in me and I in you, you will bear much fruit. Apart from me, you cannot do anything. If you remain in me and my words remain in you, ask whatever you wish, and it will be done for you. This is to my Father's glory, that you bear much fruit, showing yourselves to be my disciples. Emily Cady wrote that healing is a branch of the vine, but it's not the only branch. She wrote, there are many branches, all of which are necessary to the perfect vine, which is seeking through you and me to bear much fruit. So that much fruit means that there is more than just a healing capacity for us. 1 Corinthians chapter 12 reads, now about the gifts of the Spirit, brothers and sisters. I do not want you to be uninformed. There are different types of gifts, but the same Spirit distributes them. There are different kinds of service, but the same Lord. There are different kinds of working, but in all of them and in everyone, it is the same God at work. Now, to each one, the manifestation of the Spirit is given for the common good. To one, there is given through the Spirit a message of wisdom, to another, a message of knowledge by means of the same Spirit, to another, faith by the same Spirit, to another, gifts of healing by that one Spirit, to another, miraculous powers, and to another, prophecy, to another, distinguishing between spirits, and yet to another, speaking in different types of tongues, and still to another, the interpretation of those tongues. All these are the work of the one and the same Spirit, and he distributes them to each one just as he determines. Just as a body through one has many parts, but all its many parts form one body. So it is with Christ. For we are all baptized by one Spirit so as to form one body, whether Jews or Gentiles, slaves or free, and we are all given the one Spirit to drink. Even so, the body is not made up of one part, but of many. So just as the body is not made up of one part, but many, we also do not have just one spiritual gift that's been given us. We have many. Even though the aspect of healing has been on the forefront for so many people's minds, there are also those other gifts that have been given to us that everyone has access to and can develop. As I just mentioned, it says, to one there is given the gift of a message of wisdom, to another a message of knowledge, to another faith, to another gifts of healing, another miraculous powers, prophecy, distinguishing between spirits, different types of tongues, the interpretation of tongues. All these are different, and yet all of these are part of Source, which we also are part of, which means we have the ability to grow and develop each and every one of these gifts if we really choose to. So let's take a look at these different types of gifts that we have, and we'll start with the gift of healing. Because I've already mentioned that we have so many different healing modalities that are being taught throughout the world. You know, I have heard some people say that this or that type of healing modality is the best there is, it does the greatest work, et cetera, et cetera. And yet I also know practitioners who can come in, close their eyes, take a deep breath, and just put their hands on a person. And then that person's body begins to shake and jerk just from the electromagnetic field that it's coming into. And when the session's over, they have these incredible healings. There's nothing left in their body that was causing them the illness. And there's no special technique. There's no special words. There's no special anything, except that this person was so attuned to Source that they were the pure channel for Source energy to come into that person's body in the manner in which that body needed it. So if you are moved to be one of those who are called to be a healer, then find the path that resonates with you. Your electromagnetic body will resonate more with one modality of healing over another. Find the one that you resonate with and delve into that one. You know, I began with the spiritual gift of healing because that's the one that more people are most attuned to. But let's take a look at another one that is the gift, and that's the gift of wisdom. Have you ever known someone who just had the wisest words to say to you, no matter what the issue was? Someone who could call you on your stuff if you needed it, but yet at the same time, someone who could instill words of wisdom in a soft and gentle way. You know, my wish for everyone is that they could have someone like that. And yet those words of wisdom can come straight from Source if we spend the time in meditation and prayer with Source. There are so many times in our lives that we wish we had someone to give us some great words of wisdom. And sometimes it's challenging times, and sometimes it's just everyday stuff that goes on. And we really wish we had someone to share those ideas and things with And yet we do have that right inside of us with our connection to source. The biggest irony there is that when we begin to look to source for words of wisdom, we actually open ourselves to actually be the channel of words of wisdom for other people. So once again, the more you look to source for anything, the more you are actually developing that aspect within your own self. And then we move on to another message of knowledge. And this knowledge that Paul spoke about in 1 Corinthians is not the type of knowledge such as book knowledge or knowledge of how to take care of yourself, or basically any type of knowledge of anything outside of yourself. Knowledge that Paul spoke about is an inner knowing about something. Call it intuition if you wanted to. This is the type of knowledge that was highly developed during this particular time on the planet, and actually for eons before that. This type of what I call intuitive knowledge is a knowledge that is, there's a predator around the corner, that we just know that there's something to eat around the next corner, or I just know a storm's coming. I actually think that the vast majority of people on this planet actually use their intuition, but are not consciously aware that they use it, or they don't want to call it intuition. This is something that can be developed very, very easily. And that's just constantly tuning into your inner self and constantly listening to that. So then there's another one, miraculous powers. This is the one I chuckle at because it's one of the core classes if you're taking a class on psychic development. This is actually a gift of the spirit. It's not something outside the spiritual realm. It's something that has been gifted to each and every one of us. And when I was taking my psychic development classes, we learned how to move pencils. We had made a passageway through cars. We were shown how to change the weather. Just a whole lot of other things. And this was put out as this special thing out there. And I would say even today, for 90% of the people out there, they think that this is something beyond them. And yet our ability to move the elements of this earth is something that we all have inside of us. If you ever read the books, The Life and Teachings of the Masters of the Far East, they will even say that the majority of people think that this is a special gift for special people. And yet there are hundreds and hundreds of stories of people who, at a very significant point in their lives, one most of the time where they were under great danger or stress, that things happened beyond what they could even consider. I read a story about a person that saw a boulder move out of their way as it was coming toward them, when just by their thought, they were thinking, move, move, and it shouldn't have moved. And all of a sudden it just did. And another person recalled that they were able to hold their breath underwater far longer than they would ever could have before, where they were trying to get their foot free from being trapped. Another person recalled where there had to have been a time warp of somehow, because there was no way they could have gotten from where they were to where their child was in time to get them out of harm's way, unless something miraculous had happened. And these were all times when that gift was put into play without their conscious knowledge. So once again, this is just something that we all have the ability to do if we chose to develop it. To another prophecy. And actually, this is really an easy one. How many of you have ever gone to a psychic? So what is the psychic doing if not using the gift of prophecy? The thing is, even with being a psychic who can read you and read the future and all of that, these gifts are still developed through meditation. They are still spiritual gifts to us. I was in an Edgar Cayce class once, and one of the women there just wanted to join because she had heard of Edgar Cayce and she wanted to study the books. She had never meditated before and decided that she was going to meditate 2 hours a day, 1 hour in the morning, 1 hour in the evening. And after 6 months, her intuitive ability just ran rapid. She was able to see auras. She was able to look at a person and know about their future. She was able to do all sorts of things. The bottom line is, the more you meditate, the more these gifts just automatically start coming to the surface. And you don't have to work at it to develop them. So another is distinguishing between spirits. We've all heard of mediums. Some even now listen to YouTubes for mediums or watch shows on TV that show mediums and what they do. I've taken classes on mediumship to learn how to develop that skill, and also to develop the skill where I can tell between those on the other side who a person wants to come in and talk to, and just some odd person on the other side who just wants to come in. And I've learned to actually, in my mind's eye, see a soul from the other side. And I know that if I were to spend more time developing it, that I could actually get to the point where I could feel those spirits on the other side of my presence, or even get to the point where I could actually see them. So that is really just talking about mediumship once again. And once again, that can be developed through meditation. So to another, speaking in different kinds of tongues, and to still another, the interpretation of tongues. You know, if you were to go to some evangelical churches today, speaking in tongues is completely accepted wholeheartedly. And now there may be some of you who laugh and scoff at this. And yet in the Bible, the speaking in tongues was listed as a common occurrence. Sometimes they say that the Holy Spirit had taken over the person and was speaking through them. Sometimes they say that they've opened themselves up to another being who speaks in a different language, and so they're channeling that person. Be it what it may, this is a spiritual gift from Source. It's also one of the least understood and the least developed of all the gifts of the Spirit. And then you could also say that there is, this is where channelers come in. Some people channel entities who speak in a different language. There's some famous channeler on YouTube that channels different people from different countries who passed over eons ago. And, he has sitting beside him an interpreter who interprets what's being channeled through this man. So is that speaking in tongues? It could be considered that. But once again, either way, we still have that as a spiritual gift. To go even further with that, I've heard stories of young children who are out in the garden or out just playing happily outside, and all of a sudden they're speaking some different language that their parent or parents then overhear. Is that speaking in tongues? I mean, who knows? Maybe this whole idea of being a channel is actually what they meant when they said speaking in tongues, that these people were actually just channeling someone from the other side, wanted to come through to share a message, and yet they're channeling it in their language, not in the language of the person who's doing the channeling. And then we have the gift of faith. Faith is one of the probably least understood and most effective of all the gifts. It kind of combines some of the aspects of wisdom and knowing and those gifts together. But when you have the gift of faith, there's many, many promises in the Bible where Jesus has said, believe in me, ask and you shall receive, all of this. And we as human beings don't trust that quite so much. And yet there are people in all different religions who absolutely claim if Jesus said it, then it's true. Ask and you shall receive. I've asked, I will receive. There it is. Point blank, black and white. And I remember a story of a place where there had not been any rain for a long time, and they were having a meeting to pray for rain. One older lady came in carrying an umbrella. I said, "What are you carrying that for?" And she said, "Well, we are praying for rain, aren't we?" This was her faith. We're going to pray for rain. We're going to have rain. I bring my umbrella because we're having rain. So even the gift of faith is developed through the art of meditation. Yep. So there you have it. Many, many gifts of the Spirit. Some of them, pretty ordinary. We take them for granted. Others, we might raise our eyebrows at them in question. But if these were recorded by Paul in his first letter to the Corinthians, it had to be pretty darn significant for him to do that. So hopefully today's message has stimulated for you to look further into the aspects of the spiritual life that you had not considered before. Or if you've been meditating for a while, maybe some of these things are beginning to happen to you and you've been unsure about them or even a little wary of them. Either way, just know that as you truly begin to meditate every day and you truly start surrendering this life of yours more and more over to Spirit, that there's going to be things that will begin to happen that you're not expecting. Now, these things are not out of some psychic development manual. These actually come from the book Lessons in Truth by H. Emily Cady. These were writings that were published in the Unity magazine in the late 1800s. So I want to end with this quote from Emily Cady. Then why should we fear to wait upon God with a perfect willingness that the Holy Spirit manifests itself through us as it will, knowing that whatever the manifestation, it will be for good, all good to us and to those around us. So my encouragement is to make that commitment, to meditate, to open yourself to a much higher spiritual life, and just see where that takes you. So God bless everyone. Have an absolutely beautiful rest of your week and begin to really enjoy all the world around you. Much, much love. Take care.